Hello and welcome back. We are going to be starting this semester with talking about cell division and how cells get bigger and grow and divide and the difference between mitosis and meiosis. So, just to start off with a little bit of humor here, biology is the only science where multiplication and division mean the same thing. But really it's true. When we talk about cells multiplying and we talk about cells dividing, it really does mean the same thing. So don't be confused. All right, so just a little bit of background. Cell division, when we're talking about that, you need to understand that all cells are derived from pre-existing cells, okay? You can't get a new cell without a cell that's already there, all right? So it takes one to make one. New cells are produced for growth and to replace damaged cells or old cells. So you guys are all still growing. I am not. So my cells, when they go through mitosis, are just to replace damaged cells or to replace cells that are just too old. You guys have that going on and you're still growing. So your cells are multiplying and dividing to make you taller and to help make more bone cells and more lung cells and more skin cells and all those other kind of cells, okay? Remember what we learned last year, that before cells can divide, they have to have DNA replication first because we have to keep those cells identical. If those cells aren't identical, it becomes a problem. So the instructions for making all the cell parts are encoded in the DNA, so every new cell has to get a complete set of the DNA molecules. And all the information stored in DNA must be present in every single new cell. So DNA must be copied or replicated before cell division can occur, okay? And remember, this happens in part of the cell cycle called interphase, and we'll look at that in just a few minutes. And then because of that, every new cell is going to have an identical copy of the DNA molecules. So if you look here, we have our original parent cell, and then that's going to divide, and we're going to end up with two identical daughter cells. Okay, so there's a couple of key terms that you need to understand first before we can even go into talking about cell division. The first one is chromosomes. If you look right here, this is one piece of DNA, and then this is the other identical copy of DNA, and they're stuck together in the middle. It's almost like magnets that stick those together in the middle, and that's called a centromere, okay? So remember before that I've also told you DNA is so long. Every single cell has a meter of DNA in it. Huge. How is that supposed to all fit inside of your cells? Well, that DNA coils and coils and coils and coils and coils up on itself. Eukaryotic chromosomes are, in eukaryotic cells, they are found in the nucleus. Most eukaryotes have between 10 and 50 chromosomes in each body cell. We have 46 chromosomes, or 23 pairs of chromosomes in all of our cells. Every chromosome is composed of a single, really super coiled DNA molecule. Okay, chromosomes can't be seen when cells are dividing, and that's called chromatin. So if you see here, this is a picture inside of a nucleus, okay, and all of that stuff that looks like a great big pot of spaghetti, that is uncoiled DNA, and in that form, it's called chromatin. When it's all coiled up, it's called a chromosome, okay? Duplicated chromosomes, here's one side and here's the other side. So this is one chromatid. Here's another chromatid. They're exact copies of each other. When those are put together, it's called a chromosome, and they're held together in the middle by a centromere. It's kind of where it comes in a little bit and then swings back out, okay? And because these are identical to each other, they're called sister chromatids. Why they're called sister chromatids, I don't know. All right, so again, here's one piece of DNA. It's called chromatin. Once it's copied and they're held together, that is called, the duplicated DNA are called sister chromatids. And then as it's all super coiled around all these proteins that keep it all organized and keep it all together, that's called a chromosome. We'll keep practicing those words, but it's really important that you understand the difference between them. Okay, so there's actually two kinds of cells. And when we talk about mitosis, we're going to be talking about somatic cells. Soma means body, so somatic cells are all of the body cells that are in an organism. Okay, so your heart cells and your lung cells and your brain cells and your skin cells and your eye cells and your toe cells. They're all somatic cells, okay? They are diploid, which means they have 2 sets of chromosomes in the cell. Every single somatic cell should be a diploid cell, should have 2 sets of chromosomes in that cell. Diploid is symbolized by this number 2n. So anytime you see 2n, that means it's a cell that has 2 sets of chromosomes. It's a diploid cell, so it is a somatic cell. In humans, we have 46 chromosomes per cell, or like I said before, 23 pairs of chromosomes. Gammy cells are the other kind of cells, and those are the cells that are responsible for sexual reproduction, okay? They are haploid. That means there's 1 set of chromosomes in the cell. Every single gamete cell is a haploid cell, and I remember haploid sounds like half, so that has half of what a diploid cell is going to have. It's symbolized by 1n. So in humans, gamete haploid cells have 23 chromosomes. Okay, now remember, that's specific to humans. Every single organism is unique. So I'll refer to humans a lot because we can associate with that because we are human, but don't get that confused. Not every single cell has 23 chromosomes or 46 chromosomes. That's specific to humans, okay? There are also different types of chromosomes. So just a little bit more vocabulary for you here today. Autosomes are chromosomes that are not directly involved in determining the gender of an individual. So in humans, we have 22 pairs of autosomal chromosomes in every one of our cells. We also have then sex chromosomes, and those are the chromosomes that contain the genes that determine if you are going to be a boy or a girl, okay? That's 1 pair, okay? So you have 2 sex chromosomes, or 1 pair of sex chromosomes in every single cell. Males are XY, so a male can either donate an X gene or a Y gene in the sperm cell to their future offspring. Females are XX, okay? So females can only donate an X chromosome in her egg cells. All right, so let's talk about cell reproduction just a little bit. There are a couple different types of cell reproduction. Sexual reproduction is when a sperm cell and an egg cell, so 2 gamete cells, come together, they fuse together to make a new cell, which is called a zygote. This is not going to be original to the identical cells, okay? So this process is called meiosis, when those gamete cells are being formed. Asexual reproduction is actually how prokaryotic cells and very simple eukaryotic cell organisms reproduce. This can occur very quickly. Bacteria can reproduce about every 15 minutes, which totally grosses me out, but that's what happens. It's not very complicated. They only have 1 loop of chromosomes, remember, in the very center of their cell, so that duplicates quickly, and then as soon as that happens, the cell can go through division, so it actually happens pretty quickly. Asexual reproduction is where one individual produces offspring that are genetically identical to itself. Okay, they don't have to have another organism in order to reproduce. All they do is they grow bigger, and then they split in half, and now there's two cells. Many organisms actually reproduce this way. Bacteria, yeast cells, sea stars can reproduce this way. Sea anemones can reproduce this way. And actually, bees and wasps and even some reptiles can reproduce asexually as well. There's also a type of asexual reproduction. There's different kinds, okay? So budding is just where a little offshoot forms and breaks off and becomes a new organism. Fragmentation, that's when starfish or sea stars, if one of their arms comes off, it can grow into a brand new sea star, and they will be identical to each other. Regeneration, and then parthenogenesis. And parthenogenesis is pretty cool. So real quick, I want to show you a video.
And critics cite it as a major factor against the existence of most cryptid creatures. But a recent discovery could turn that argument upside down. Megalania's modern relatives, Komodo dragons, can multiply without a mate. Called parthenogenesis, it is the process of producing offspring without male fertilization, and it has surprised the experts.
There are a handful of reptiles out there that do reproduce parthenogenically. It came as a big shock, I think, to most people that Komodos were capable of doing it.
Nate Nelson is the head zookeeper for Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas. The zoo's newest Komodo dragon was hatched parthenogenically.
He's a parthenogenic offspring. He was produced without the genetic input of a father. That means the female lays eggs, which then develop normally without fertilization from a male.
Nelson says the females can lay up to 20 or more eggs. Of those, not all are fertile. And of course, only the fertile ones hatch.
There is reason to believe that dragons at other zoos are reproducing parthenogenically. We're just not keeping the eggs.
The zoo recently incubated some of the eggs and produced these two hatchlings.
At this size right now, this dragon is really fast, really agile, and that's an adaptation for getting up in trees and away from the predatory big adults. And they'll live up in the tree for up to a year.
But does this mean Megalania could maintain a population through parthenogenesis? Nelson points out a problem with that theory.
It would be impossible to get a female because you cannot get the chromosome combination that makes a female.
So reproduction without a male is possible, but only for a generation at a time. Still, believers maintain that a large population wouldn't be needed to support a species if that species is concentrated in a small area with sufficient food supply and places to hide.
So if you are familiar with Jurassic Park, that's actually how they say that the raptors reproduce is through parthenogenesis, because there are no males on the island. So how do they make babies? Apparently like this. So that is asexual reproduction. And just so you know, here's a picture of asexual reproduction. This is actually a bacterial cell that's splitting in half. Every day I'm doubling. All right, so tomorrow we are going to be studying mitosis. I will need your undivided attention. We really will be talking about mitosis in the next video though, so hopefully you understand the vocabulary. If you don't, please go back and make sure that you understand the difference between a haploid cell and a diploid cell, that you understand the difference between a somatic cell and a gamete cell, and that you understand the difference between chromatin, chromatids, and chromosomes, because those are all really important vocab words that we will use for the rest of this unit. All right?